Identifying the time signature in music can be confusing if there's only one note at the beginning of a measure and the other measures have different note values. Learn incomplete measure anacrusis to determine the time signature when the first measure may be an anacrusis, which is an incomplete measure, or a pickup beat. In Ultimate Music Theory Expert Tip number 9, you learned about transposing up or down one octave. And you learned how there are 2 ways to transpose a melody up or down one octave, plus how to avoid one common mistake. In Expert Tip number 10, Learn Incomplete Measure Anacrusis, you will discover exactly how to determine time signature using 3 simple steps and a pickup truck. For the best Ultimate Music Theory expert tips on how to teach UMT, subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video. I'm Gloria St. Germain from Ultimate Music Theory. Now, when you teach UMT basic rudiments, that's the yellow book, and explore the time signatures to learn how to determine the correct time signature when the first measure may be an incomplete measure. So let's start with the definition of a measure. In music, the top number of the time signature indicates how many beats are in the measure. The bottom number determines what kind of note, what type of note equals 1 beat. So 1 complete measure is indicated by the time signature. So if the time signature is 3/4 time, each measure has 3 beats of quarter notes. If the time signature is 4/2, each time signature has 4 beats of half notes. So what's an incomplete measure? Well, when you teach the UMT Basic Rudiments Workbook on page 104, let's check it out. On page 104, you will learn an incomplete measure may be found at the beginning of a melody, and it does not have the complete number of beats indicated by the time signature. An anacrusis, pickup beat, or an upbeat as it's called, is a note or a group of notes in the first incomplete measure at the beginning of the music. And the last or final measure at the end of the music will also be an incomplete measure. So together, they equal 1 complete measure. So, how do we determine the time signature using 3 simple steps and a pickup truck? That's a good question, right? So let's look at the second and third measures of the melody to determine how many groups are in a measure. Are you ready? Okay. So when we look at this measure in particular, we see that we have, and we're looking at the second and third measure, we want to determine what kind of note is equal to 1 group of each of these. So here we see 1, 2, 3 groups, and each group is equal to 1 quarter note. When we look at the third measure, next measure, we see 1, 2, and then we see 1. So this indicates that we have 1, 2, 3 quarter notes. So when we see that we have 3 quarter notes in each group, we know that it must be 3/4 time. So the second step is we want to look at the first measure. And here we might say, well, wait a minute. Does it have the same number of beats that are equal to measures 1 and 2 or 2 and 3? Well, the answer is no. There's only 1 beat in this measure. And that's called an anacrusis, or a pickup beat in the melody. And now you have identified the time signature as 3/4. When you look at the very last measure, how many beats do you see? Half note is only 2 beats. So 2 plus 1 equals 3. So now we've identified our time signature as 3/4. However, if the first measure does not have the same number of beats to the one as we just determined in the second and third measures, then we know for sure that we have a pickup beat. And sometimes when you're identifying time signatures, it can really be confusing, can it? So how do we figure it out? Well, step number 3. When you teach UMT Basic Rudiments on page 104, you will notice that the beginning of each measure only has 1 note. And that is not the same value as the note values in the other measures. So how can that help us? This indicates an anacrusis or an upbeat. So one beat, beat 1 of each measure is known as the strong pulse. It's known as the downbeat. It's the 1. And when looking at the last measure, we see that the measure begins on a downbeat. It begins on beat number 1. So if we were counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Here's beat 1, here's beat 2. And in fact, what we have at the beginning of the music is beat number 3, and that's called an upbeat. The last incomplete measure with 2 beats plus the first incomplete measure with 1 beat equals 1 complete measure with 3 beats. So why do we need a pickup truck? I've got an easy tip for you. Go ahead and leave me a comment below and tell me what's the one thing that you struggle with when you're teaching students and they find it confusing when identifying time signature in music, especially when music begins on an incomplete measure. I have a free gift for you today. The Ultimate Music Theory Teacher's Guide that you can download right now, and the link is in the description below. Let me know how you enjoy it. Now, I want to share a tip with you on how you can use the pickup truck to understand incomplete measures. So when identifying counts in music, go to the last complete measure and write in the counts below the basic beat. All right, so let's check it out. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, right? 4 groups. And each group is equal to 1 half note. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4 half notes as well. But when we look at the last measure, 1, 2, 3, we only have 3 beats. This is an incomplete measure. So we had beat 1, 2, 3, and now what are we going to do? We can't find beat 4 because it's an incomplete one. So if there are 3 beats in the final measure, you're going to use your pickup truck to pick up beat number 4 and drive it over to the beginning of the music and drop it off. That's what I call the pickup truck. So now we have beat number 4 and it's at the beginning of the measure. So we have an upbeat, we picked it up, we dropped it off into the beginning of the music, and then we're coming in on beat number 1 with our strong beat. So the pickup beat is dropped off in the first incomplete measure. So can you recognize a pickup beat in music? Well, I'm going to put a little melody to the rhythm. This one right here, in fact. So you see the rhythm, ti-ti, ta, 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 half note, ti-ti, ta, 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 half note. So let's see what happens. Let's put a melody to that rhythm and see if you can feel the pickup beat, the upbeat, the anacrusis of that incomplete measure, and feel the downbeat, the strong beat 1 of the first measure. So have you got your listening ears on? Okay, so here's a little melody. Let's see if you recognize it. Are you ready? Did you recognize Happy Birthday? That's awesome. This is a great example of a pickup beat. Did you know Happy Birthday started with a pickup beat? Well, now you do. And now it's your turn. What melody can you share that has an upbeat? Encourage your students to write a little melody that has an upbeat or a pickup beat. I'd love to hear it. Share your experience in our Ultimate Music Theory Facebook group. We'd love to hear your melody with a little pickup beat to express your musical story. For more information on how you can join the community and teach UMT, simply go to Teach UMT. We have helped thousands of musicians and music educators from around the world master music theory concepts and implement these amazing tips into their teaching, both in person and online music theory lessons. So to learn more about how we can help you teach UMT, go to teachumt.com and I'll see you on the inside. In expert tip number 11, learn elements of music. Discover the step-by-step system for melody writing using 3 elements of music: melody, melodic shape, rhythm, meter and rhythmic notation, and harmony, chords that indicate tonality, to successfully understand how to begin melody writing. Till next time, teach with passion.